Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to a special video where I'm going to go over the results of three recent award shows: the 76th Golden Globe Awards, the 24th Critics' Choice Awards, and the 25th Screen Actors Guild Awards. Now, ideally, I'd like to make a video about each of these award shows separately so that I can go in depth about my thoughts on them, but due to time, I just can't do that right now, so I'm having to condense several of these into one video. I had to do a similar thing last year, and plus a lot of these shows often tend to have the same winners, so in a way, one benefit from this is I don't have to go into too much detail again and again about my thoughts on certain winners. But I'm just doing this now just so that I don't forget about it later. I'll run through the winners of each of these award shows and give my brief thoughts about them, as well as the hosts and who I thought gave the best acceptance speeches. So starting off, here are the winners for the 76th Golden Globe Awards, starting off with television. Best Actor in a Television Series, Comedy or Musical: Michael Douglas, The Kominsky Method. Best Actress in a Television Series, Comedy or Musical: Rachel Brosnahan, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Actor in a Television Series, Drama: Richard Madden, Bodyguard. Best Actress in a Television Series, Drama: Sandra Oh, Killing Eve. Best Actor in a Limited Series or Motion Picture Made for Television: Darren Criss, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. Best Actress in a Limited Series or Motion Picture Made for Television: Patricia Arquette, Escape at Dannemora. Best Supporting Actor in a Series, Limited Series, or Motion Picture Made for Television: Ben Whishaw, A Very English Scandal. Best Supporting Actress in a Series, Limited Series, or Motion Picture Made for Television: Patricia Clarkson, Sharp Objects. Best Television Series, Comedy or Musical: The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Television Series, Drama: The Americans. Best Limited Series or Motion Picture Made for Television: The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. And now onto the film winners. Best Original Score, Motion Picture: Justin Hurwitz, First Man. Best Original Song, Motion Picture: Shallow from A Star is Born. Music and lyrics by Lady Gaga, Mark Ronson, Anthony Rossimondo, and Andrew Wyatt. Best Animated Feature: Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Best Foreign Language Film: Roma, Mexico. Best Screenplay, Motion Picture: Nick Vallelonga, Brian Curry, and Peter Farrelly, Green Book. Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture: Mahershala Ali, Green Book. Best Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture: Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk. Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical: Christian Bale, Vice. Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical: Olivia Colman, The Favorite. Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Drama: Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody. Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Drama: Glenn Close, The Wife. Best Director, Motion Picture: Alfonso Cuarón, Roma. Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical: Green Book. Best Motion Picture, Drama: Bohemian Rhapsody. Alright, here are my thoughts on the winners. So with television, I can't really say too much about these. A lot of these shows I haven't really seen, but some of them are not surprising, like Darren Criss, since he won at the Emmys. But a lot of these are shows that were not eligible at last year's Emmys, but will be eligible this year. So it'll be interesting to see if Michael Douglas will repeat at the Emmys for lead actor in a comedy series, and if Patricia Arquette will repeat as lead actress in a limited series or TV movie. While the Globes often usually like new shows, they did manage to get a repeat win this year for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which rarely happens. And this year for drama, they decided to honor a later show instead. They honored The Americans with its first and so far only win, because it never really got any recognition for its previous seasons. And they kind of did the same thing with Breaking Bad in its final season, giving it some awards. And with limited series or motion picture made for television, I wasn't sure if they would go for Assassination of Gianni Versace, because I'd heard a lot of great things about Sharp Objects, but I guess they really love Ryan Murphy, just like the Emmys. As for film, For Best Original Score, uh, I'm not. I'm fine with this win. If it was either that or Mary Poppins Returns, I would have been fine. So, for Best Original Song, of course, Shallow is going to win, and it deserved to win. Like I said before in other videos, I wish I'll Never Love Again had also been nominated, but Shallow was the only song they decided to focus on. But I'm not really upset about that, though. Although I'll Never Love Again is my personal favorite song from A Star is Born. Best Animated Feature, I personally would have liked to have seen Incredibles 2 win, because I think it was the best animated film of last year. I did like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse a lot, but there were a few issues I had with it. I can't say too much about them, because that would involve giving away spoilers about some characters, so I'm not going to do that. For Best Foreign Language Film, of course Roma would win this, and it deserved to win. Best Screenplay Motion Picture, Green Book's screenplay was fine, but nowhere near as good as The Favorite or If Beale Street Could Talk. I mean, all the other 4 nominees here, in my opinion, are better than Green Book, to be honest, at least in terms of their screenplay. For Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture, I really like Mahershala Ali's performance in Green Book, but Richard E. Grant I thought should have won for Can You Ever Forgive Me. Of course, in some ways, this is kind of a makeup win to Mahershala Ali, because he shockingly lost this category 2 years ago when he was nominated for Moonlight. Aaron Taylor Johnson won for Nocturnal Animals, and then, of course, he ended up getting snubbed at the Oscars, and then Mahershala Ali kind of swept through most of the other award shows, including the Oscars. And he did deservedly win at the Oscars. So while he's the best part of Green Book, I think Richard E. Grant ultimately gave the best performance in this category. For Best Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture, yes, Regina King deserved to win this hands down for If Beale Street Could Talk. I know she's had a bit of a rocky season because while she's swept pretty much all the critics groups and Golden Globes as well as Critics' Choice, which I'll get to, she hasn't gotten nominated at big precursors like Screen Actors Guild and BAFTA, which share membership with the Oscars. But that doesn't mean she's completely out for the count, but she deservedly won this category. For the 2 acting categories, for comedy or musical, both Christian Bale and Olivia Colman were the deserving winners. For Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, I do know some people who are very happy about Rami Malek winning here, and while his performance is fantastic, out of these nominees, I would have given it to Willem Dafoe for At Eternity's Gate, just barely narrowly beating out Bradley Cooper for A Star is Born. In my opinion, either of them would have been more deserving of this win. For Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama, talk about a shocker, because the audience was shocked, Glenn Close herself was shocked by this, and all awards pundits were shocked because everyone, including me, thought Lady Gaga had this in the bag. But I guess with Glenn Close, the whole narrative about her being overdue, particularly at the Oscars, because she's never won there, must have been too powerful to overlook, I guess. But she was really good in The Wife, and I'd say she's worthy of her nomination, but this should have been Lady Gaga's award, and I say that as someone who doesn't necessarily call myself a little monster, you know, the term that Lady Gaga's fans like to call themselves, because I've never really hated Lady Gaga's music, but I've never really been a big fan of it either, and I was very hesitant when I heard she was cast in this, but boy did she prove me wrong. And Best Director Motion Picture, this is interesting, where I'm not mad at the winner, and they would have been my second choice, but I still wish someone else would have won, but I'm not mad. Roma was a fantastic film, and it's my second best film of 2018, but my number 1 was Black Klansman, so I feel Spike Lee would have been a little more deserving of this, but this is not one of those wins you get mad at, like, say, Suicide Squad winning Best Makeup and Hairstyling over Star Trek Beyond. For Best Motion Picture Comedy or Musical, Green Book was really good, although not necessarily great, but so I think The Favorite should have won this. And then Best Motion Picture Drama. Now this is an award that got people not just mad, but furious, because this movie is very controversial, Bohemian Rhapsody. Yes, I know it's made a lot of money at the box office, and audiences for the most part do seem to love it a lot, but there's quite a number of people that don't, and critically it's very mixed. So I think this is one of the lowest rated, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, winners for Best Motion Picture Drama probably ever in the history of the Golden Globes. I don't have facts and figures to back it up, but I'm going to take a good guess that it is. And me personally, I liked but didn't love Bohemian Rhapsody. It was fine. The acting was great. The music performances were great, but as a biopic, it just felt very standard. And you could definitely tell how messy this film must have been in the editing process because of Bryan Singer getting fired near the end of filming. And of course, now Bryan Singer has new waves of sexual abuse allegations against him, which makes Bohemian Rhapsody being in the awards race already a controversial situation. I'm not really going to go too much into depth about that here, because if I were, this video would never end. Bohemian Rhapsody, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 overall, so it was easily the weakest film nominated here. Easily. Almost any of these films would have been more deserving of a winner, especially either BlacKkKlansman or A Star is Born, particularly BlacKkKlansman, because that was my #1 film of 2018. So I guess I'm a little bit biased there, but still. There are many people, critics, audiences, or film lovers who find films like BlacKkKlansman and A Star is Born far better than Bohemian Rhapsody. It's probably not going to win at the Oscars, where it is nominated for Best Picture, because it doesn't have key writing and directing nominations, and the Oscars have 8,000 voters, whereas the Golden Globes only have 90, plus Golden Globe voters are just journalists and reporters, while the Oscar voters are actual film people, like actors, directors, writers, editors, cinematographers, etc. So, and Golden Globes and Oscars don't always agree on the best films of the year, so don't always count them as the indicator of what's going to win. As for the ceremony itself, it was fine in terms of hosting. Sandra Oh and Andy Samberg were okay, but I wouldn't necessarily say great. Sandra Oh, I'll admit, was a lot funnier than I thought she'd be, because normally I associate her with dramatic stuff, not comedy. So their jokes were okay, but not necessarily amazing. They weren't as great as Seth Meyers or Amy Poehler and Tina Fey or even Ricky Gervais. And they tried to do this whole thing about giving everyone flu shots, although those weren't actually real shots they were giving out. And they were obviously trying to imitate, like, say, Ellen DeGeneres' pizza gag at the Oscars. But while that was funny, this was just a poor imitation of that. So the ceremony itself was just mixed. As for acceptance speeches, for my top 5, I would rank them like this. Number 5, Alfonso Cuarón. Number 4, Sandra Oh. Number 3, Regina King. Number 2, Carol Burnett. She wasn't a competitive winner, but she did, of course, win the very first Television Lifetime Achievement Award, which will now have her name. It'll be called the Carol Burnett Award, and her speech was very moving. And of course, on the film side, Jeff Bridges won the Cecil B. DeMille Award for Lifetime Achievement. He said he just barely missed my top 5, but then the best speech of the night, even if I disagreed with her winning, I can't deny how powerful her speech was, and that was Glenn Close. I mean, her speech was so rousing, she got a standing ovation in the middle of it. And then, of course, again at the very end. So 2 standing ovations in 1 speech, that's, even at award shows, that's pretty rare. Alright, now it's time for the 24th Critics' Choice Awards winners. So there's a ton of categories here, so I'm going to try and go through these as quickly as possible. Starting off with television. Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, Henry Winkler, Barry. Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, Alex Borstein, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Actor in a Comedy Series, Bill Hader, Barry. Best Actress in a Comedy Series, Rachel Brosnahan, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Comedy Series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Animated Series, BoJack Horseman. Best Supporting Actor in a Limited Series or Movie Made for Television, Ben Whishaw, A Very English Scandal. Best Supporting Actress in a Limited Series or Movie Made for Television, Patricia Clarkson, Sharp Objects. Best Actor in a Limited Series or Movie Made for Television, Darren Criss, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. Best Actress in a Limited Series or Movie Made for Television. There was actually a tie in this category, with Amy Adams, Sharp Objects, and Patricia Arquette, Escape at Dannemora. Best Limited Series, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. Best Movie Made for Television, Jesus Christ Superstar, Live in Concert. Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series, Noah Emmerich, The Americans. Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series, Tandy Newton, Westworld. Best Actor in a Drama Series, Matthew Rhys, The Americans. Best Actress in a Drama Series, Sandra Oh, Killing Eve. Best Drama Series, The Americans. And now on to the film winners. Best Art Direction, Black Panther. Production design by Hannah Beechler, set decoration by Jay Hart. Best Cinematography, Alfonso Cuarón, Roma. Best Costume Design, Ruth Carter, Black Panther. Best Film Editing, Tom Cross, First Man. Best Hair and Makeup, Vice. Best Original Score, Justin Hurwitz, First Man. Best Original Song, Shallow, From a Star is Born. Best Visual Effects, Black Panther. Best Action Movie, Mission Impossible Fallout. Best Animated Feature, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Best Comedy Movie, Crazy Rich Asians. Best Actor in a Comedy Movie, Christian Bale, Vice. Best Actress in a Comedy Movie, Olivia Colman, The Favorite. Best Foreign Language Film, Roma, Mexico. Best Sci-Fi or Horror Movie, A Quiet Place. Best Original Screenplay, Paul Schrader, First Reformed. Best Adapted Screenplay, Barry Jenkins' If Beale Street Could Talk, based on the novel by James Baldwin. Best Young Actor or Actress, Elsie Fisher, 8th Grade. Best Supporting Actor, Mahershala Ali, Green Book. Best Supporting Actress, Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk. Best Actor, Christian Bale, Vice. Best Actress, here was another tie, Glenn Close, The Wife, and Lady Gaga, A Star is Born. Best Acting Ensemble, The Favorite. Best Director, Alfonso Cuarón, Roma. Best Picture, Roma. So as for the TV awards, not really a lot of surprises here with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Assassination of Gianni Versace, and The Americans, pretty much the big winners, and that was kind of expected, especially with The Americans because the Critics' Choice Awards have always loved that show more than the Emmys have. As for the film winners, for Best Art Direction, that should have gone to The Favorite. For Best Cinematography, that was well deserved. For Best Costume Design, also should have gone to The Favorite. For Best Film Editing, from these nominees, I can agree with First Man winning. Technically, I'd like to have seen Black Klansman win, but that wasn't nominated here, but First Man is the second best editing of the year, in my opinion. For Best Hair and Makeup, Vice is absolutely the deserving winner here, because how they transformed Christian Bale into Dick Cheney, wow. Best Original Score, now if Beale Street Could Talk wasn't nominated at the Golden Globes, but it was nominated here, so I wish that would have won, but it probably will win the Oscar, because when we get to the Oscars, we'll see that First Man was shockingly not nominated there. Best Original Song, Shallow, of course, that deserved to win. Best Visual Effects, I think First Man would have been a better winner here because those effects are probably the most realistic, and I like to see the most realistic looking visual effects win. For Best Action Movie, I can see why Mission Impossible Fallout won this. I personally would have liked to have seen Ready Player One win it. Best Animated Feature with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like I said with Golden Globes, I would have liked Incredibles 2 to win. For Best Comedy Movie, out of these nominees, I would have liked to have seen The Favorite win. Green Book, which won at the Golden Globes, was not nominated here. But then again, the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice often have a different idea of what comedy is. For Best Actor and Actress in a Comedy Movie, once again, Christian Bale and Olivia Colman are the deserving winners. For Best Foreign Language Film, Roma is a deserving winner. For Best Sci-Fi or Horror Movie, out of these nominees, A Quiet Place, definitely a deserving winner. Best Horror Film of last year and one of my best films of 2018. For Best Original Screenplay, First Reformed's screenplay was very good right up until the last 30 seconds. And so if you ask me personally, out of these nominees, 8th Grade should have won. And sadly, that got snubbed at the Oscars, and I'll talk about that in my Oscar video. But out of these nominees, 8th Grade should have been the winner. For Best Adapted Screenplay, If Beale Street Could Talk had a great screenplay, but this should have gone to Charlie Wachtel, David Rabinowitz, Kevin Wilmot, and Spike Lee for BlacKkKlansman. I suppose this is to make up for Barry Jenkins not winning this for Moonlight 2 years ago. Of course, back then Moonlight was nominated as an original screenplay and then placed and adapted at the Oscars because it's technically based on a play. And I guess the Critics' Choice missed that memo. But that's all in the past. For Best Young Actor or Actress, Elsie Fisher is a very good winner, although I personally would have given it to Millicent Simmons for A Quiet Place. But this category was a really good category. The only one I hadn't seen was Ed Oxenbould in Wildlife because that never came to my area. So there's not really a winner in here that makes me mad, or a nominee, I should say. For Best Supporting Actor, like I said before, the Golden Globes, Mahershala Ali was good in Green Book, but Richard E. Grant should have won for Can You Ever Forgive Me? For Best Supporting Actress, Regina King, deserving winner. For Best Actor, well, I still would have liked to have seen Willem Dafoe win for At Eternity's Gate. I will admit Christian Bale is a better choice than, say, Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody. For Best Actress, I'm glad that Lady Gaga got recognition somewhere. I think Glenn Close will probably win the Oscar because of the whole overdue factor surrounding her, but I'm glad at least Lady Gaga won something. I'm sure Lady Gaga will probably win the Oscar for Original Song, but I wish she could win Best Actress too. For Best Acting Ensemble, this is tough because the Favorites ensemble is great, but I personally like the ensemble of Widows a little more, I guess just because it's bigger and everybody in the ensemble has their moment to shine. But I'm not really going to complain too much. For Best Director, although I would have liked to have seen Spike Lee win for BlacKkKlansman, I have nothing really against Alfonso Cuarón winning. Same with Roma in Best Picture. It would have been right behind BlacKkKlansman for me. As for the show itself, it was fine. Taye Diggs was okay as the host, but being the Critics' Choice host isn't as prestigious as like the Golden Globes or the Oscars. And he had some funny jokes, but then he had some musical numbers that didn't really work in my opinion. But he was certainly better than T.J. Miller, thank God for that. And he was better than Olivia Munn last year. As for top 5 acceptance speeches, I have number 5, Darren Criss, number 4, Christian Bale, number 3, Glenn Close, number 2, Lady Gaga. She was very emotional, and I think a lot of the people she thanked were the people that she would have thanked if she had won at the Golden Globes. And her speech went on very long, but it was so emotional that you didn't want her to get off the stage. And then number 1, and I'm sure everyone would probably agree with me on this, is Amy Adams and Patricia Arquette, because since they tied, they gave their speeches together and they kind of went back and forth, and it was really great to watch. Alright, and then last show here, the 25th Screen Actors Guild Awards. This time a smaller list of winners because they don't have as many categories. And of course, with the Screen Actors Guild, with television, they don't separate categories into lead or supporting. They just do male versus female, while the film side does separate them into lead or supporting because they have less categories than television. It's a bit weird, I know, but that's how they've always worked. Alright, so here are the winners for the 25th Screen Actors Guild Awards. Starting off with television. Best Male Actor in a Comedy Series, Tony Shalhoub, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Female Actor in a Comedy Series, Rachel Brosnahan, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Male Actor in a Drama Series, Jason Bateman, Ozark. Best Female Actor in a Drama Series, Sandra Oh, Killing Eve. Best Male Actor in a Television Movie or Limited Series, Darren Criss, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. Best Female Actor in a Television Movie or Limited Series, Patricia Arquette, Escape at Dannemora. Best Stunt Ensemble in a Television Series, Glow. Best Ensemble in a Comedy Series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Best Ensemble in a Drama Series, This Is Us. Now on to the film winners. Best Male Actor in a Supporting Role, Mahershala Ali, Green Book. Best Female Actor in a Supporting Role, Emily Blunt, A Quiet Place. Best Male Actor in a Leading Role, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody. Best Female Actor in a Leading Role, Glenn Close, The Wife. Best Stunt Ensemble of a Motion Picture, Black Panther. Best Cast of a Motion Picture, Black Panther. So on the television side, again, a lot of the same winners like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Assassination of Gianni Versace, Escape of Dannemora. I guess there's some surprises like Jason Bateman for Ozark. A lot of people, including me, thought Sterling K. Brown would repeat for This Is Us, but Ozark ended up overperforming in the nominations, so I guess they felt they had to give it something. And with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, there was literally a clean sweep as it won all 3 categories it was nominated for. As for film, again, not too many surprises. Mahershala Ali wins again for Best Supporting Actor. Once again, I thought Richard E. Grant should have won, but I guess it's beyond the point now. For Best Female Actor in a Supporting Role, this is where Regina King was shockingly snubbed, and a lot of people thought maybe Amy Adams would win for Vice because there's been the whole narrative of her never winning an Oscar, and maybe this would be the great launching point for her. But instead, Emily Blunt pulled off probably the most shocking win of the night for A Quiet Place. And what's shocking about this is that she's not even nominated at the Oscars. Usually the SAG Awards are meant to be the indicator of what will win at the Oscars, but it's very rare for someone nominated at SAG who's snubbed at the Oscars to win. The only other recent case that this happened to was Idris Elba for Beasts of No Nation, and that was, of course, during the embarrassing moment of Oscars So White for the 2nd year in a row. So this, as a result, leaves the Best Supporting Actress race at the Oscars pretty much wide open still. For Best Male Actor in a Leading Role, this could very well allow Rami Malek to win the Oscar, but now the question will be, will the new Bryan Singer allegations, which only came out a few days before the Screen Actors Guild Award and likely didn't impact voting then, will that affect Oscar voting now? That's going to be interesting to wonder, because we've seen actors win awards for movies in which they work with problematic directors, like Adrian Brody winning an Oscar for The Pianist, which was directed by Roman Polanski, Cate Blanchett winning an Oscar, and as well as a SAG award for Blue Jasmine, which was directed by Woody Allen. And now, of course, Bryan Singer, he's been accused in the past before of being a pedophile and molesting teenage boys. And now there's new allegations against him, which happened like years ago, and maybe it might be too late for him to be prosecuted for them, but they're still pretty damning nonetheless. And there's the whole debate of should everyone else involved in a film directed by a problematic director be punished, especially in this Me Too movement. It seems right now the answer is still no, at least from what the industry is saying, because Bohemian Rhapsody is managing to win some of the smaller Guild Awards, so I guess the idea is why punish someone for something they didn't do? But then again, the other people might say, well, they still work for Bryan Singer anyway. So that's a tough call, and I'm not going to get into a debate here just because I myself am always going back and forth about this. Out of the nominees here for Best Actor, I would have liked to have seen it go to Bradley Cooper from these nominees, because Willem Dafoe is not nominated here, but Bradley Cooper would have been my second place option, at least out of these nominees. Of course, Ethan Hawke's been snubbed for First Reformed throughout most of award season, and he would have been a fine winner in my book as well. For Best Female Actor in a Leading Role, it looks like Glenn Close is now finally on her way to winning her first Oscar, and like I said before, I would have given it to Lady Gaga if I were a SAG voter, or voted for her at least, because I'm not the one who decides the awards, obviously. For Best Stunt Ensemble, I guess I can see why Black Panther won this, although I'm sure an argument could have been given for any of these films. And then with Best Cast of a Motion Picture, this marks the very first comic book / superhero film to win this category. Whether it's going to win at the Oscars, we don't know, because the SAG Awards only have about a 50-50 track record of the film winning the Ensemble Award or Cast Award, whatever you want to call it, going on to win Best Picture at the Oscars, because while Black Panther did, of course, get nominated at the Oscars, which I'll talk about in my video, it didn't get nominated for key categories like writing or directing, and those categories are key to usually winning Best Picture. As for the ceremony itself, it was pretty standard, your typical Screen Actors Guild Awards ceremony. It only lasts 2 hours instead of 3 like the Oscars or the Golden Globes or the Emmys. Megan Mullally was okay as the host. She wasn't bad, but she wasn't necessarily great either. But then again, the SAG Awards have only had 2 hosts, her and Kristen Bell. And for what little she had to do, she was fine, I guess. As for top speeches, I'll say number 5, Darren Criss, number 4, Sandra Oh, number 3, Alan Alda. He got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he gave what I thought was one of the most moving speeches I've ever seen a Lifetime Achievement Award recipient give in the years I've watched the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Number 2, Jason Bateman. His speech I thought was very moving, especially since a lot of this year's show's theme was the Actors Union of the Screen Actors Guild, and especially with helping struggling actors. And Jason Bateman openly admitted in his speech about how he was very much a struggling actor before Arrested Development helped him get his career back on track, because he had a good run as a child actor, appearing in shows like Little House on the Prairie and Silver Spoons. But then in his adulthood, he struggled for a while before Arrested Development really put him on the map to where he is now. And I'm glad for him. Even though I never liked Arrested Development as a show, I'm glad for him at least. And at least he was one of the better characters on that show. And then I think the best speech of the night was Chadwick Boseman. You know, when he was up there with the cast of Black Panther accepting on their behalf, basically. Well, I mean, the whole cast is up there, but because there's not enough time for everyone to speak, usually one person will do all the thank yous on behalf of the cast, and that's what he was doing, and talking about how there's greater visibility, not necessarily in terms of comic book movies per se, but rather for diversity in terms of black artists, black actors, black filmmakers, black writers, etc., since Black Panther very much had black artists in front of and behind the camera. And of course, Hollywood still has a long way to go in terms of diversity. There's been great strides made, but obviously the efforts still need to be made even further before we're at that truly acceptable level. So those are my thoughts on all those award shows and their winners. I'll be back soon with my videos on the BAFTA nominations, the Razzie nominations, and of course the Oscar nominations, which is always my favorite video to make. And once the BAFTA winners and eventually the Oscar winners are announced, I'll be making videos on those as well, so stay tuned for those. And thank you so much for watching, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you can get all my new videos as soon as they're uploaded, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.